Welcome to Dorrs Down. Today, time and technology. Toby suggests that technology maximizes our time. I thought technological advancements timestamp our own development as humans. What do you think?
Well, I think right now I'm pretty aggravated with technology because I have to tell our listeners this was our second recording of the podcast because I forgot to turn the microphone on.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I'm just so used to everything just working that I don't think the most obvious thing is to turn something on.
Yeah, so in this particular case, we need to take our time and get our technology right.
Yes, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
So in our headline case today,
a psycho that plowed down Bourbon Street in New Orleans this week, killing 14 people.
Wouldn't it be nice if one week we came on and said there's no headline case to discuss this week?
Yeah, it seems like headlines are always bad, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
So I'm sure that he probably injured a whole lot of other people,
I'm
maybe
sure
hundreds.
He did. You know, I read today that he was wearing these meta glasses, which are like computers on your face, but it looks like a pair of glasses. I actually tried some on when I got my new prescription.
Which is a new technology.
Yes.
But he used it because he rode a bicycle through the...
Yeah, in October, he rented a bicycle and rode it all through the French Quarter and wore those glasses, and then he used the video to map out his plan.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so technology
strikes again sometimes, yeah.
So there were other things that he did from technological standpoint, too, that he posted things on social media, which is more technology.
Right. And, you know, the FBI tell us that, I just read an article today in the Washington Post that they believe he acted alone.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
That's what I say.
Yeah.
So not only, but, you know, there's these four things that were awfully coincidental similarities between that guy that plowed through Bourbon Street and the other guy that blew up a Tesla at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. And both of them were ex-U.S. military. Both of them rented their vehicles through the same website, which was an obscure, weird website.
It's not like Expedia or something.
Both of them were making a political statement, and what was the fourth one? There was another one.
That they both were Muslim. The one guy in New Orleans had been a Muslim for a while, but the guy in Las Vegas had just recently converted.
Oh, really? So they were both Muslim. You sure of that?
Yes.
Interesting. So I think, and I know that the guy that was in New Orleans was a Muslim since he was just young. He started off as a Christian. He converted to Muslim when he was really young, I think maybe when he was a kid. And then he joined ISIS at the beginning of this last summer.
Oh.
And he was radicalized. And
his brother said that.
His brother said to the FBI or whoever was investigating this thing that he was radicalized by ISIS.
Yes.
They quoted a certain phrase about him. He wanted to make a political statement that spoke to the war between the believers and the disbelievers.
Which that just doesn't make sense to me, because how does killing some people in a terrorist attack make you want to believe in whatever he believes in?
To you and I, we can't reach out far enough. We can't stretch our thinking and our understanding, our belief system far enough to understand where this guy is coming from. You and I, and to most Americans, would think that this guy is just insane, and I think he probably is. But he comes from a different culture and a different belief system and a different, you know, the background that brought him to where he was is different than the one that and I also think very much that a big part of what he was trying to do is a sick way of finding significance in the world.
I agree with that. Significance is really important. And I didn't know until I met John Maynard how much I yearned for significance. And I didn't want to be someone great that the whole world knew. I just wanted to be someone that I was the center of their world.
I think it's fascinating because in your situation, I think that you didn't even know there was something missing until somebody came along and made you feel significant.
Mm-hmm.
And that
That's
feeling
true.
of significance was enough to light a fire.
Yes. I didn't even know I didn't feel significant.
And I think you burned down the
was.
whole farm
I
from
did.
there. You
I
just
did.
you know, it was time to make a change, and you were willing to sacrifice anything in order to continue to drink from that well of significance.
Yes, I so agree.
Very, very powerful.
Yes.
It's so intoxicating.
It is.
To feel significant is just really it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, so if we get back to our episode this week is about time and technology. The first thing that before even we've recorded history, they suspect that the first thing that they found was stone tools. You know,
that they just used a rock to crack something open.
Yeah, to crack a nut open or to crack open a clam on the shore or something. Just something to use in order to get some of the most basic food source.
And then I think probably the next thing that came was fire. And you asked me earlier tonight, why was fire important for humans? And my answer was that I think it gave them the ability to cook their food. And because they were eating cooked food now, they had less illnesses because they didn't get parasites from their food.
Which surely is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also meant that they could store food for a little bit because cooked food lasts a little bit longer than raw food.
Yeah.
And so maybe they didn't have these. I imagine way back before they had lots of tools that life was a series of food and starvation, and a little bit of food and a lot of starvation. And I think that being able to cook probably evened that out a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, so there's a cooking theory which states that once fire came along, then language came after that, and the growth of our brains was directly related to fire, and it's based on the cooking theory, which is if you can start and control a fire and then cook food, unlike the rest of the animals on the planet, which have to digest their food from a raw source. So a lion eats a zebra, and they have this belly full of raw meat, and they have to digest that.
And it takes a lot longer to digest.
We can take the same meat and pre-digest it by cooking it. So cooking and pre-digestion are really kind
That's interesting.
two in the same thing.
I didn't know that.
And there's a double whammy that comes with it. Now, the first thing is we get more nutrients that are so more easily tapped into because we've pre-cooked the food, pre-digested the food, right? So that's one thing. So there's an added benefit of more nutrients that we're absorbing because of the cooking. But the other part of it is because it's also pre-cooked, because it's cooked and pre-digested, when it gets into our system, we don't have to expend as much energy into our digestive tract in order to digest the food, which now we have not just twice, but 3 times the amount of nutrients that's in our bloodstream. So we have more energy and we have more nutrients, which both are used to develop a bigger brain.
So we start thinking, we have time to think.
Yep.
And probably the act of hunting, because now you have fire to cook more meat. All those things create your brain bigger and better.
Yeah, and opposable thumbs has something to do with it, and a bunch of other things. But bottom line is that somewhere along the way, we managed to advance even more technology. We came up with the cotton gin and the printing press.
Oh, the printing press.
You like
That's
the printing
my
press.
favorite thing.
Yeah. Why do you love the printing press so much?
Because books are the world.
Books are awesome. So here's one of the things I think is fascinating about books and the printing press. Before the printing press, even books. So books before the printing press were, you said that they were handwritten by monks. And so I think one of the things that's fascinating about that is books, even back then, were words that were written down. So it was a language, and it was words that were written down that even if the monks die, which they did, and even if all the rest of the world's population dies, which it did, that the books remain.
Yes.
And they carry the thoughts of people that wrote those books back thousands of years ago on into the future for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And they are enriching our lives today, and they're communicating with us from the past.
Right.
That this technology of books and language and writing and communicating, all of those technologies transcend time.
That's true.
I think that's pretty powerful when our episode is about technology.
I think it is too. I think it is too. And by the way, Chris built me some awesome custom bookcases in the media room for Christmas.
They are awesome.
They are awesome. And now finally I have my library.
Yeah, you finally have a library. It's a pretty good one.
Yes.
And I think we'll probably expand if we get around to it or have the
we
money
do
to.
want to build another bookcase in there and make it into a podcast station too. So we'll just do our recordings in there too.
So social media, internet, telephones, smartphones, all of those things came
in
from the mind of
1982, Steve Jobs. Dun, da, 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 Apple computers, the best thing in the world.
Which Steve Jobs is different than Mr. Wheel.
Yeah.
So Mr. Robert Wheel, back,
His name wasn't Robert, it was Wally.
It was Bob Wheel. It was Wally Wheel.
Uh-huh.
I think Wally was his middle name.
Oh.
Anyway, his last name was Wheel.
Okay.
And his first name is kind of, we don't know for sure, but his last name was Wheel. And about 10,000 years ago, he invented the wheel. And it caught on. The neighbors thought it was an awesome idea, and they could carry their grain a little bit easier and everything else. So they started doing it too. And they really appreciated what Mr. Wheel did. And so it just stuck after a while. We now have the wheel. Yes. And it was named after the guy that made it.
Don't have your kids put that in their history reports. Of course, in 1982, I got a job working in the computer room at Kansas City Power and Light. And the computer room was this monster room in an underground cave with all these machines. And now my smartphone has more space and more knowledge in it than that whole room full of computers.
Yeah, that's true.
It's amazing.
I would say that's
when I first
true.
started there, the only way to get information into that computer was key punch cards.
Oh, yeah.
They had a whole key punch operating department that typed, and they punched these cards, and then they went and pushed them in the computer.
Wow, are you old?
Yeah, I know.
You're time stamping yourself right here in the podcast.
Yes,
cool.
And so, of course, technology is a great thing for the human race, but I think it has some downfalls too, because things like social media, which really let us communicate and connect with people all over the world. We're not just limited to our local communities, but I think it also sucks time away from you too, because people spend so much time.
Nah, it doesn't. It sucks time away from you. It doesn't suck time away from me.
Well, that's because I'm trying to make sure the emails you need to read get read.
I don't even bother looking at them.
I know it. It drives me crazy.
Emails and social media and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I tried for, I don't know, the first 5 years or so. I was really kind of into Facebook.
Yeah, I remember when you were into Facebook.
And then I never understood Twitter. I still don't.
I don't either.
And I don't know. I think the only fascinating thing about Twitter is that I have a personal relationship with Biz Stone.
I know, that's pretty interesting. Who
Twitter.
was your...
He was my little step half brother.
Yeah. Well,
when I was like 17, he was 9, and we both lived under the same roof. We were two peas in a pod for a couple of years, and then he went on to become something significant, and I became less and less and less significant until now.
You built me my bookcase and are doing a podcast with me.
Now the best thing that I can do, the only thing that I'm capable of doing is building a bookcase.
That's not true.
In a basement that nobody will ever see. Anyway,
I see it, and that's all
Yes,
that
you do.
matters
Yep.
because
And you are
I'm what's
significant.
significant.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
you are significant.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the other downside, I think, of social media too is that it just lets us say the nastiest things that we wouldn't say to people's faces. You know, there's some beauty and some humanity in face-to-face conversation.
I hate automatic program upgrades.
Oh, I know you do.
You know, we have these browsers that these automatic updates and stuff, and they just come in and they just come from out there in the ethos somewhere, and they arrive in your office, and they take over your computer, and they tell you that, oh, do you want it to do this and you want it to do that, and then it starts changing stuff, and it changes your wallpaper, and it changes the sound, and it changes the settings, and it changes a bunch of stuff, and then when it's all done, you have no clue, and you have to relearn everything, and you don't even understand how any of it works in the first place.
Which, by the way, there's an upgrade I need to set for your phone to cap.
And passwords, I hate them.
I know.
I hate passwords, and that's why I just make sure that you know all my passwords and all of my PIN numbers for my all that stuff. I just let you handle all that crap because you like to remember that stuff. I hate it.
I know you do. I know you do. So, technology obviously is a bonus for the human race, but it has its drawbacks, which we've talked about. I think social media lets us say nasty things that we would never say to someone's face.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's really sad because there's a lot of preteens and young teenagers who've committed suicide because of stupid stuff on social media. And I don't know, you know, maybe.
Well, I think personally, you know, I'm sorry I'm not more sympathetic toward anybody that commits suicide. But I feel like people that commit suicide are committing suicide because of a lack of character in themselves. And that if they had a deeper character, that they would not be so easily influenced by, who cares if somebody said something on social media.
You know, think back to when you were beginning in high school. You know, it mattered what people thought of you.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. It mattered to me.
Yes.
It mattered to me a lot what people thought of me. But the reality is nobody liked me. I was very, very unliked. I'm still unliked today. I am a weird guy.
Well, you
even admit that I'm a weird guy. So I've always been a weird guy, and I just came to a conclusion that I don't really care what anybody thinks.
But it took you a while.
Yes,
when
it
you
did.
were a teenager,
yes,
it bothered you.
Yes, of course it bothered me, but I didn't commit suicide.
Well, but you might have if they'd had Facebook back then.
No, I just wouldn't. I don't think anything's changed. I wouldn't have done Facebook back then any more than I do it now.
Maybe not.
I don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks.
You know,
sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
I disagree with that. Words hurt.
No.
They hurt. They hurt. They hurt.
Only if you give them power. You have to give something power.
Well, that's
true.
true.
To do
that's
any
true.
damage.
You do.
And I just don't give anything any power. So anyway.
What about nuclear weapons? That's a technological advancement, and I'm not sure that that's to humanity's benefit. Might be the downfall of all of humanity at some point.
Do you know what technological unemployment is?
No.
It's when the big boss at the factory decides that they're going to upgrade and they're going to install a bunch of robots to build all the cars, and they'll let all those people go home permanently. So that's technological unemployment. So they don't need people to build cars anymore because they have robots to do it.
Wow. Yeah, that's true.
But on the other hand, arguing for the technological, that there's more money that comes in because it's cheaper to build. There's higher quality cars. The rest of the people that are out there.
Well, nobody lowers prices because they made something cheaper. You know, look at the price of cars today.
Yes.
$80,000 for a new car? Yeah, that's so ridiculous.
Yes and no. Yes and no. The reality is, from an economic standpoint, if you go and you study economics, the price is a direct result of the balance between supply and demand. And there's nothing that you can do about that. Even if you were a car company that wanted to inflate your prices, somebody else that's a competitor will lower their price in order to outdo you. Wow. So you have to compete. That's the whole capitalistic way.
Okay, well, You hate emails and I hate what?
Capitalism?
No, I don't at all. I don't think I hate anything,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, you don't hate anything? I think you hate felony murder.
Well, I do hate felony murder.
Speaking of felony murder.
Yeah, here we are.
At our favorite part of the episode, felony murder, inspired by John Maynard.
I have a weird case for you today, but before I give you this weird case, let me tell you, Chris and I lived in Missouri before we moved here to Virginia, and I'm learning a lot about Missouri.
Yeah, now that you moved away from Missouri, you're starting to realize that Missouri's got a few glitches.
So as other states have weakened...
Hitches in their giddy up.
Yeah, that's right. As other states have weakened their felony murder statutes in recent years, the charge remains fairly popular for Missouri prosecutors. Missouri's also pretty giddy over the death penalty, too. According to data obtained by the News Leader, 151 people were charged with felony murder across the state of Missouri from January 2017 through November of 2018.
All right, wait. That deserves a little bit more emphasis.
151 people in the state of Missouri in 1 year time period did not kill anyone and were found guilty of murder.
Because of this stupid
obsolete
loophole
felony murder
called
rule.
Felony murder.
Well, let me tell you about this one case I found today from Missouri. James Kohlenberg was driving down a residential street when he fatally struck a 2-year-old who ran in front of his vehicle. Now, the 2-year-old was outside unsupervised, which was, a bad reflection on a parent. You can't just let your 2-year-old kids in the front yard unsupervised. He ran into the street, and Kohlenberg wasn't speeding. He wasn't driving recklessly, but the kid ran right in front of him, and he hit the child and killed him. It was unavoidable. It was a horrible, tragic accident. But it just so happens that 7 months earlier, James had stolen the car he was driving on the day he hit this 2-year-old boy.
Perchance, did you happen to know while you were reading about this, how old was James? I bet he was young.
I think he was young. I think he was in his 20s. I saw a picture of him, but I didn't see his age.
Yeah, and I think, I know that I've read somewhere, and I believe that this is true, of my own experience, that people do not start really grasping the concept of consequences until they're 25.
That's right.
So 25 years old.
It's not just your circumstances and my circumstances. It's a physiology study that shows the part of the brain that comprehends consequences is not fully mature till someone's around 25 years old.
So felony murder, I just want to emphasize one more time what that really is. So I always ask you, what is felony murder?
It's a loophole.
It's a loophole.
It's a loophole that lets prosecutors get a cheap and easy conviction.
Cheap and easy conviction for murder.
Yes.
The result of charging somebody with a felony murder is identical to any result of anybody that's charged and convicted with murder. First degree murder.
So now here's the interesting thing. In Missouri, and this is one of the only few states where this is true, felony murder cases do not require that the death be caused by an agent of the felony, which means in this case with James Kohlenberg, if someone in any other state had stolen a car and someone was killed in the act of stealing that car, which is a felony, they could be convicted of felony murder. But Missouri went so far as to stretch back 7 months and say he stole a car 7 months ago and he hit this boy with the stolen car. Therefore, it's felony murder, which is such a far stretch. I find it hard to believe that a court would even allow that.
I have a strong streak in me that supports the spirit of felony murder. Now, I'm against felony murder, and I want it stricken from the books, and I don't want prosecutors to be able to use a loophole to get a cheap conviction. I don't like it. I'm against felony murder, hard against it. But there's a bit of a streak in me that understands that when a 2-year-old gets run over by somebody that is obviously a criminal that stole a car, had he not stolen the car, he would not have been driving that car.
He might have been driving a different car that he didn't steal. I think that, unfortunately, the biggest fault in this case lies with the parent who wasn't watching the child.
In that particular case, yes. But again, I want to stress that I'm not trying to advocate for the guy that was driving the car and try and get him off the hook for that event, nor any of the other features that we've had in our podcast. What I'm against is the social justice, the social injustice of this concept of felony murder that is still allowed in most of our states for somebody that is a prosecutor to charge somebody that is otherwise innocent of murder just because they were involved in some sort of a crime, and anybody in that circle, anywhere close, anywhere even remotely similar to that neighborhood, if they die, then everybody gets charged with felony murder.
Well, and I
don't think that that's right. That
I think
is
you do
so
have
wrong.
to agree that this was quite a stretch. Even in the injustice of felony murder, this was a pretty far
I think
stretch.
it's a bit of a stretch, but you know, I'm not for the guy that was driving the car. I'm for ending this whole thing of felony murder.
Yes.
If the guy was guilty of murder, forget the felony part, that he wasn't committing a felony and then he gets charged with murder on top of it called felony murder. But if he was just guilty of murder, if he intentionally was driving down the street and he was like driving too fast and he was drunk and he was like, he was just hoping that some 2-year-old kid is going to run out in front of him so that he can run him down, that's a different story. That's murder. And he should be guilty of murder for that situation.
There's vehicular manslaughter cases and charges, and that would be with intent. But if this car had not been stolen, he would not have been charged with murder.
I wish there was an easy way to describe felony murder so that our listeners could really understand what the difference is between felony murder and murder. First degree murder
means
is
you
one
killed
thing.
someone.
You killed somebody and you deserve to go to prison for life or even death sentence.
Right.
And felony murder is when you've committed a felony, or if you're even associated with somebody else that's committing a felony and anyone dies in that circle, then you're guilty of felony murder and you can be charged as though you committed a first-degree murder.
That's right. It's just ridiculous.
And you go to prison for life or even death row.
Yeah.
And that is way
ridiculous.
off.
I think it's really ridiculous.
The rest of the world's already outlawed it.
Yeah. So guess what time it is? Time to draw a card from our basket. I always love this part. I want a good one, Chris.
Race Against Time. Stories of urgencies.
Wow.
Race Against Time. I like that. That's kind of cool.
I like that too.
Race Against Time. So
that'll be fun.
We've got some work to do.
We do. We certainly do.
Technology is simply the application of knowledge to advance the human race. So consider it a blessing and use it. At our website, find the link to add your signature to the petition to end the loophole called felony murder. Reflect with us using hashtag 2DoorsTimeTech. This is Christian and Toby Dorr communicating more effectively across time using whatever technology lights your fire. 2 Doors Down. It's about time.
Subscribe on YouTube at 2 Doors Down. For exclusive content, check out our Patreon channel. Our website is 2doorsdown.com.
Until next time.